Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got a collection of Walthers on the table. It's one thing when you run a gun channel, you do end up with getting little collections of things, so we figured it'd be fun to show a collection of Walthers. Walther's been around for a long time. They've got a pretty good variety of guns available. So let's start with this one here. And by the way, I did something to annoy my left arm, and we're kind of not on speaking terms at the moment. So I'm going to forego the normal clearing. This one is a Creed. I'm going to forego the normal clearing that we do every time I pick one up. But Hammer and I both did clear every single gun on this table. We both double checked it, so every one of them is clear. The Creed is a hammer-fired gun, styled along the styling of a PPQ. It's got a similar grip. It's a little bit blockier. It's a hammer gun, and the big claim to fame on this one is you get a similar trigger to the PPQ, a little bit more take-up, but that nice crisp break for about a few $100 less. So if you're wanting a nice trigger and you're willing to have something that's a little bit blockier, Creed does a good job in that respect. Next thing I've got over here is a P99. This one is an AS model, P99 Cas, and this could be considered the predecessor to the PPQ. It starts to have a little bit more of that PPQ styling. The grip on this is a little more similar to what you might see on the older PPS. This also has a very nice trigger, and you'll notice it's got this AS function, anti-stress, and when I pulled it back, instead of going all the way forward again, it locked in this backward position. A little bit of take-up, and a short crisp break at the end. There's a little bit more take-up on this than a PPQ, but that crisp light break makes it for a really nice trigger. This has been a fun gun to have. Now I did mention the PPS. There's two variations of this. This is the classic, or what might be called an M1 now, but at the time this was just the PPS, and it's got a little bit of a squarer body. This particular, and the thickness of this gun, this grip works a little bit better than the M2, which had more of a PPQ style rounded grip. Neither one of us could shoot that variant well, but both of us can shoot this one well. Short take up, a little less light break, but still nice and crisp. And here's basically that same thing. This one has a laser on it, and this one is when Smith & Wesson was still importing Walthers before Walther was able to direct import. So a few of the guns you may see that are actually Walthers were brought into the country by Smith & Wesson. This one functions the same, has that same basic trigger. This one feels a little bit lighter, and with the laser on it, there you go, makes a perfect defense gun, inside the waistband carry, and the Crimson Trace makes a really good high-end laser. Let's go back in time a little bit. This is a PPK-S. This particular one is chambered in 32 ACP. This one's actually got Walther logos on it. Really nice short take-up, nice crisp break in single action. Double action is kind of heavy, but single action on these is really nice. This particular one was imported by Inner Arms. This one's a 380. It has that same nice trigger. One difference in it, the trigger is a little serrated on this one, whereas the other one had a smooth trigger. That's just generational differences. But these are just nice guns, and think about when these first were designed and first came out, this was a pocket gun. And now with the weight of it, you wouldn't even consider putting this in a pocket. There's so many other options today that are a lot lighter and a lot easier to carry. But at the time, that was a pocket gun. Next thing, we'll move a little bit back towards the future again. And I have a PPQ. This is what would currently be called a classic, but at the time it was just the PPQ. It has the paddle release, which is a nice long paddle release, easy to get hold of, as opposed to some of the shorter ones where you kind of have a hard time catching with your finger. And this has the PPQ trigger. Light, smooth take-up, super short, crisp break, and a very nice reset. The PPQ of the various striker guns out there is the trigger they all try to achieve. They've got just an awesome trigger, and this one also has conventional rifling. So unlike the Glocks, you can shoot lead cast reloads in it easily. But it has a lot of the same ergonomic features you're used to in the various modern striker-fired guns. It does have front serrations for the press check crowd. Overall, the PPQ is a really good choice. They're a little bit pricier than some. And then as we move forward, we now move into the button release, which would be the M2. The previous one and this one are chambered in 9mm. They're polygonal rifling, which they moved to when you went to the M2 series, and the button release, which is more popular with Americans. The rest of the gun's about the same. The trigger didn't change, still that nice light crisp break, nice 3-dot sights. As I move down the line, then I move into the Navy, which is, this one is an M2 variant, but it comes with a threaded barrel. And we've actually put the suppressor on this and it's worked quite well. No loss in that awesome trigger moving to the Navy version with the threaded barrel. Basically, it's just a PPQ with a slightly longer barrel. Same nice sights, nice 3-dot sights. And then the long-awaited gun that finally came out, which is the Glock 26 Size Ppq Sc. And this is meant to be a nice light carry gun with that really cool trigger. It sounds a little different. The internals of this gun are slightly different than a PPQ, but they retained that trigger. Button release. This one here, we did a 2,000 round test on this one and it performed flawlessly. We did have a little trouble with the very first one, but it was probably one of the first 100 that were manufactured. And they took care of that promptly. So this gun has been flawless ever since then. And it really does make the perfect carry size, especially if you want a Glock 26 size gun, but you don't like Glocks. So now let's move forward a little bit into Walther's entry into the competition crowd. This is the Ppq Q5 SF, which stands for steel frame. This is a heavy gun, and it really is designed to be truly a competition gun. A lot of manufacturers make guns that are, basically in a larger version of their Polymer Wonder, and they call it the competition. Glock's got one, and they're nice, and they do work well. But this truly aims at the competition crowd, which are looking for a little bit heavier gun, and some of the additional features. You can get a variant of this with the flared mag well. Of course, it comes pre-cut. This is a Vortex Venom, but it comes pre-cut to put optics on it, a nice red dot on it. They have a nice beaver tail, even though there is no hammer. So you get right up in there and you get a good grip on it. And the trigger on this is, as you would expect, awesome. It's a little bit lighter and a little bit crisper than a regular PPQ. But overall, this gun is a lot of fun to shoot. And this gun is almost impossible to mess with. This is one of those guns where it just wants to find the target for you. Whether you're using a red dot or you're using that fiber optic front sight, it just works well. But they're not inexpensive. You can get 2 PPQs for the price of one of these. Of course, you have PPQ available in 40. It's been available in 40 for a long time. This is an M2. Now, this one doesn't get as much loving from either one of us. 40 is a bit of an unpleasant recoil, so this one tends to spend more time in the safe than at the range, but it is a nice gun. Now, the 45 created quite a stir when it was released. This one is a very fun gun to shoot. Very nice. Of course, you got the 3-dot sights. You still got that PPQ trigger. And overall, this is a 45 that's nice to have. So if you're looking for a polymer gun and in a 45, this would be a good choice to look at. And we'll go to the other end of the spectrum, a 22 with a threaded barrel. This is the Ppq 22, and it's actually made by Walther. This is one that's not necessarily manufactured as a clone. It really is true to the Ppq. Now, internally, it's a hammer gun. It is a 22, so I'm not going to pull the trigger. Internally, it's a hammer gun, but overall, they did retain a very close approximation of the trigger, and it's a full size. A lot of the 22 variations of a regular gun are 2/3 size or somehow off. So it does make an excellent practice gun for a 22, and really fun and easy to shoot well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed a bit of a tour of the Walthers. I'm sure this collection isn't finished growing. There's a Q4 SF out there that I know is on Hammer's list. It's basically a smaller variation of this guy. But Walther does make a good gun. They're fun to shoot. They've been proven reliable. Even these guys, we had a little trouble with these because they were old, but once some new springs were put in them, they worked flawlessly after that. So it's just a cool bit of fun, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to be notified if you do. Check us out on Instagram, Patreon, Facebook, Gunstreamer. We're kind of all over the place. Thank you.